Hello everyone, welcome back. We're now going to get started implementing p5.js and actually trying to get a window displaying and getting something showing on our canvas. So we'll get started first by creating a new source file. And this one is usually the first one you create, just called main.js. And this is going to control everything else that's happening in the game. So we're going to start with main.js, and we will first call it here right after the library. So since we're already in source, we can just go / main.js. We can go / main.js. There we go. Okay. And now inside main.js, this is the basic p5.js function. So we have function setup. Okay. Now what setup does is that it runs once. It runs once at the beginning of the application. And then we also have function named draw, where this function will run as many times as you need after the setup. So setup runs, and then draw runs in a draw loop forever, until you stop it somehow, right? So in setup, we're going to create a canvas. Okay, now for now, let's just call it let's make it 800, 800. Now we could define some constants and call it at the top and then use that for math, which we will eventually do. Actually, no, we'll do that now. We'll do that right now. So we'll call it const int width, and that's going to be 800. And we're going to also have, you don't need to call int, const width 800, and we're going to have const height. Now I'm doing them full caps just so I can distinguish between my constants and my non-constants, especially my global constants like those. There we go. So there we go. So create canvas width and height. So now we should be creating a canvas on our P5 window. So if we take a quick look onto here we have the window right here, and we should have an 800 by 800 square showing up right now, but the problem is we're not drawing anything to it yet. So we'll start by doing that. So we'll go to background, and we'll call it a background color. Let's make it slightly less than white, like slightly darker than white. And there we go. And we should see now, if you look here on the screen, we have this little nice 800 by 800 gray box. Now that's exactly what we're drawing here in setup. Now, what we could do is put it in the draw loop, so we're drawing the background every frame, but we don't need that right now. We'll eventually get to it. So since it's actually a sky, it's a very nice sky color, we'll make it more like a bluish color. So we'll go like 100, I'll go 150, 200, and that should give us a nice sky. No, that looks nothing like a sky. We'll go... There we go. Okay. This is a nice little pastel blue that I found. It's just 160 RGB. So red value is 160, green is 160, and blue is 250. So the background function just takes a color from p5.js. We could also give it an alpha, which is the transparency, but we'll leave that as no transparency at all for now. Okay, so now we have an actual main function working, and we have the setup working, we have the draw loop working. So now what I want to try to do is start doing some object-oriented programming and try to start creating a class that's going to contain the road and all the cars and everything inside it. So we'll make a new file. I usually do this whenever I'm starting a new class, and I'll call it the name of the class. So it's going to be road.js. So in road, we're going to define a class, okay? And it's going to be a road, and we're going to take a constructor that we don't need to know anything about right now. So at the top of our road, we're going to define something called static variables. Now, these are variables that actually do not have to do with a specific instance of the road. So it's whenever we call this road constructor, we're going to be only creating one road at a time, right? And each road is going to be identical to the others. So we're not going to necessarily need to store the lane amount and all these other variables inside the road specific instance. We can instead do it inside the road class. So we can save some memory. So first thing we want to store is the road's lane width. So each lane, how wide is it in pixels? So we'll call it lane width, like this. Now for now, I have no idea even how to think about it, but we'll put it as 75 pixels for now, and I'll just keep it at that. So now what we want to do is, starting from the bottom, draw lanes 75 width until the top. But for now, since I know this will be infinite for now, but we will start with lanes, and we're going to put 3 lanes on the road for now. Okay, so if we want to ever access these variables, we have to go road.lanes, and that gives us exactly what it is. So let's start right now, and let's test if our import is working correctly, all that stuff. So we'll go console.log road.lanes. So it should just be printing whenever we create a new road, it should print just once road.lanes. Now this constructor basically means whenever you say new road, create a new road here, it's going to run this constructor. Now we're not giving it any variables yet, but we will eventually. So let's go to main.js and we're going to say, we're going to just do a thing. We're going to call it let road. Okay, so we're just going to have a global variable called road for now. In the setup, we're going to call road equals new road object. Okay, so this is where the constructor function should run right here, new road, which basically means go to this file, create a new class, and save it in this variable. That's a global variable called road. Okay, and we also need to ensure that we're importing the road file as well, because or else JavaScript won't know where to find the road class. There we go. So we have this now, and now if we go back to here and we refresh, we should see at the top right here, road.js 6, line 6 is printing out the number 3. Go to road.js, we go to line 6, and we check out, yep, so it is our console.log, and it's printing the correct number, road.lanes 3. So everything's working, our static variables are working, everything else is working. So now what we want to do is whenever we call road, we should just draw the road to the screen. So we're going to call a new function called display. Now, whenever this display function is called, it's going to draws the current road state to the screen. That's what we're going to do. So we're going to display. First thing we're going to do is we're going to push, which is just good practice when you're programming p5.js. Push and pop basically means just save all of the current draw like variables like angle mode, degree mode, that kind of stuff. And then you go to pop, which basically just means return to them. So we save it, and then now we're going to change them a bit, and then pop will return to the previous ones. So we'll go to push, and then now we're going to change the fill color to a dark gray, like a road's color, which is like 120, 120, 120. And we're going to make a stroke. We're going to actually make it no, we'll go stroke 1 or whatever. It doesn't actually matter. We'll make the stroke black. So we'll make it stroke 0. And then, well, technically, 0, 0, 0, and then we'll go stroke weight 2. So it's gonna be kind of thick lines, right? So now what we're gonna do is assuming the lane is going to be taking up the top of the screen. So we'll go back to here. We have this canvas right here, and what happens is the 0, 0 coordinate is actually here in the top left. So it's not Cartesian like you learn in school where it starts from down here. It's actually from up here. And so what happens is when you increase x, you're going this way. That's 800x. When you increase y, you go down, and that's 800y right there. So what we're going to do is back in the code, we want to draw a rectangle. And what p5.js's rectangle takes, assuming we're taking rect mode top left, which is what it is, we start with the top left of the screen. And now we're going to draw a rectangle. We're going to draw it starting from 0, 0. We're going to move, its width is going to be, we'll say the entire width of, actually no, we have a variable right here for lane width. No, that's lane height. Okay. There we go, sorry, that'll be confusing. Lane height because it's in the Y. So we'll start a rectangle and we'll draw just we're gonna draw the rectangle taking up the entire lane. So we have 3 lanes, each lane is 75 high. So we're going to go in X, it's gonna take up the entire screen, but in Y, it's gonna be road.lanes, which is 3 times road dot, what did I call it? Lane height. Road dot lane height. There we go. So now we should go onto the screen. We should see 3 lanes being drawn 75 each. Nothing is happening because display is never being called. So let's go back to main.js. Now I think is the time that we should move to the draw loop. So we'll start doing that. So we'll first, every frame, we'll draw the background. And then after that, on top of the background, we'll draw the road's current state. There we go. And this road right here is again the global variable that we have. There we go. Beautiful. So now we have a road being drawn starting from the top left, going down exactly 3 lanes worth of 75. Now, I can't really visualize where the lanes are, so I'd like to draw a line after every lane, for every lane. So we first draw the rectangle that'll take up the entire lane. Let's also make the stroke weight down to like 1, because now we want to make it look slightly better. There we go. That's much more even. Then we will go to rect length right here, and we're going to add a line for every single lane. Now, this could easily be done with a for loop. For now, yeah, we can do it with a for loop. So we'll go with a for loop. So we'll go for or let I equals 0. Okay, so we're starting with an iterator called I, and it will be set to 0 at the beginning. I is less than road.lanes, I++, okay? And what are we going to do every run through this loop? Well, we're going to draw a line. In p5.js, there's a function called line that just draws a line. It's going to draw it in this stroke color with this stroke weight. And stroke is just like the outlines. Yeah, so line, it's going to start at 0x, and its y value is going to be, well, what did we say? So it's going to be road.lane height, because we want to rate lane height, times I. So it's going to draw the line at the y value that corresponds to the I. Now, the problem is we don't want to draw that line at the beginning at 0. We want to draw it in between the lanes. So we should offset it by 1. So it's going to be I plus 1. Yeah. And then we want to go all the way to 0, 800. So we're going to start. So this is going to be the x value. And then we're going to go 800, not 0, 800. That was the mistake I made. 800, and then this exact same y value, just so we can keep it straight. So then we're going to draw that, and then let's take a look at what happens. There we go. So now we have 3 lines being drawn. So here's the first line. Now remember I said offset, so we don't start at 0. So we draw the first line here, we draw the second line here. Now here's the problem. We're drawing a third line right here. So we don't actually need that many lines. We can get rid of this third line. So we'll go to road lanes minus 1. And now it looks exactly the same because we didn't really change anything. We just stopped overlapping this line. So now we can start playing with the variables. We can start changing the lane width. We can start changing the lane height, that kind of stuff, so we can play around with this. So we'll go lanes. We'll make it 10 lanes. Make the highway 10 lanes long. Let's take a look what happens. Boom, and it draws perfectly, and here is the road. So everything is fine. I want to make this, I think having 75 as lane height is good, but we can change it to 100 just to visualize and make sure. Okay, so that's what it looks like with 100. We can make this we'll make this 5 lanes of 100 each. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now, if we compare that to our drawing right here, we could say, okay, so we'll have the frog. That's about 100, I would say. I think it's valid. So there we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a start area, which is going to be the first lane at the bottom. And then we're going to have the frog start at the start area, and it's going to slowly move all the way up. But before we can do that, let's just quickly git commit everything that we've done so far in this tutorial. Let's go to git add everything. So we're going to add every single thing that we've changed so far. We're going to git commit. The message is going to be started project, lanes, started project, lanes generating correctly. There we go. Everything is good. All right, there we go. So now that we have the road class started, we should start planning how we're actually going to do this road generation. So let's open up this drawing right here, and let's try to figure out how exactly we're going to generate the roads. So the whole point of this series is actually to show you more about what my thought process is when I'm actually creating something. So you're going to be basically brought along with my thinking process as well. It's not like I've planned exactly how we're going to do everything here. So I think what we're going to have is down here, we're going to have like a start area, right? That'll be like lane number 0. Okay, so that's where the frog will start. Okay, let's say this is the frog. Oh my God, pardon my drawing. So what we'll have is we'll have the lanes generate all the way up past the screen, right? So assuming here's the screen, this is what you can see. Well, we'll have the lanes going all the way to the end, but whatever. So we see this. We start from the frog and we generate the lanes all the way up here, like this. And then as the frog moves, what we should do is instead of moving the frog, we should move the lanes back. And now that's a very common principle that you see in infinite runners and infinite scrollers, which is what we're trying to do. So the frog, as it moves forward, what we'll have actually the entire lanes, the entire lane array should shift backwards. So then we'll move to this state right here. So it looks like the frog advanced in one lane, even though it stayed in exactly the same position. Now we could start with the frog in the middle. That might make a tiny bit more sense, but we can toy around with that in a second. So then we keep doing it again. The frog moves again. The lane moves up like this. Okay. And then each time, obviously this top bit is gone. Then what we should say is that, okay, we should check if there's any lanes that are completely off the screen. If there are, we erase it. We stop drawing it because we don't really need to draw that lane. And we add a new lane at the top. There we go. So this just simple thought process is actually making me think that we should have a class that stores each lane because we're going to be using it as its own individual object. So what I'm going to do right now is I'll quickly create a lane class that the road will have an array of. So the road is going to be a class that's going to store this. It's going to store an array of lanes. Okay. And then the lane class, that's going to store the cars that are in the lane. Cars in the lane. It's going to also store its own Y position. That's what we should do. So then all we need to do is just the road will tell, okay, we need to delete this lane. It deletes it from its array. Okay, we need to add this lane. Boom, add a new array at this Y position. Boom, boom, boom. Everything is perfect. Okay, so let's get started implementing that. And then once we do that, we can finish off this episode really quickly. Once we build, this is basically the skeleton of the program. So we're going to have a file now called lane.js, okay? And that's going to be class lane. And as we just said, the constructor, it will take its own Y position, okay? Now that Y position is, I will just define it right now. It's going to be a number, and it's going to be the position of the top left of the lane. The Y coordinate only, because the X coordinate is going to be 0 no matter what, because all lanes will start from the leftmost side of the screen. So the Y position of the top left lane. Okay, there we go. So in this constructor for now, we're just going to say this.y equals Y, which just basically sets this parameter here to a local instance variable. Okay, perfect. There, and with that, we should be done with the road now. Instead of saying static lanes 5, we'll actually set static lanes. We'll actually make lanes no longer a static variable. We'll keep lane. Actually, no. We'll get rid of lane height as well. All of those are done, and we will go to constructor and we'll say this.lanes equals a new empty array. Okay, and we'll add for now, just for the sake of it, we'll say this.lanes.push. We'll add a new lane to it for now. And we said the lanes have to take a Y variable, so we'll give it 0. So draw a new lane at 0. And then now, instead of here we'll go, we should keep inside the lane, we should also store a height, a width. So we'll go to lane and we'll say inside lane, we'll do another static variable. Static lane height, we're the same variable that we had before, we're just moving it to lane, and we're going to call that 100 again. So then, now we'll go to road and we'll say, instead of road.lanes times road.lane height, we'll do lane.lane height, because now it's in the lane class. And instead of road.lanes, we're going to do this.lanes.length, because now we have a certain amount of lanes in our road, in our specific road. So this.lanes.length, and perfect, then we'll say I is less than this.lanes.length again, which is just taking the length of the array that's called this.lanes. And this dot means associated with this specific instance. So it's not a static variable. Like this is a static variable because there's no this. It's with the lane class in general. So there we go. We have line 0. And then we'll again go lane.lane height. And here, lane.lane height. And now we should draw it. And it should go back to working. Lane is not defined. Oh yes, I forgot to put lane into here. Now I like to put them in the order that they're inheriting from each other. So we'll put the lane at the top because road takes lane and then main takes the road. There we go. Beautiful. So now we're drawing the road onto the screen. Here's the first lane. If we go to the lane and now we add a bunch more lanes, we'll add a new lane here. Now, obviously, we're not taking into account this Y yet, but we'll do that in the next episode. There we go. And now we're adding exactly the amount of lanes that we have. Each lane is a specific class. So with that, there we go. Let us finish. Let us git commit. So we'll git add everything, git commit. The message will be lane generation, lane class added. And with that, I'll end off this episode here. And in the next one, we're going to be trying to get these lanes moving up and down, depending on a given variable, which will be the frog's Y position. So stay tuned for that.